Hello everybody, and welcome back to Certifact Collectibles. This is another episode of First Appearance of the Week. This is Wednesday, June 26, 2024. We'll be giving you all the first appearance in your comic shops today. Now this week we have a pretty light video for you guys. I think we only have 3 first appearances, 2 honorable mentions, so only 5 titles in all to go through, but there's definitely some books in there worth picking up for your collection. So let's go ahead and get started for the first appearances of the week, ending June 28, 2024. First up from DC Comics, Absolute Power Ground Zero #1. This features the first cameo team appearance of Amazos interconnected through Failsafe. This here is a prelude to the Absolute Power event. Now, like we always mention with the DC Comics, it really depends on what DC does with these characters that they're introducing in the comics, as to how important these characters are going to be in the future and how important these particular issues are going to be. Now, DC Comics hasn't really had a lot of success in recent years with bringing new characters into the DC universe that collectors and fans really care about and they want to invest in or collect for long term. So whenever DC Comics introduces a new character or a new team, these are definitely going to be a little more speculative than some of the Marvel titles, let's say. Just because Marvel, Disney, they're a powerhouse, so it's still churning out a ton of media for the small screen and big screen. They bring those characters they're introducing in the comics onto the screen. People will race back to the comics and try to find those first appearances. DC Comics really doesn't have that media powerhouse that Marvel, Disney has. So therefore, a lot of the characters they're introducing in the comics, if they really don't take hold with collectors in the comics themselves, then they really go nowhere. They just kind of die on the shelf. So like I said, DC Comic first appearances are going to be a little more speculative. But DC Comics, they're also only $3 or $4. So to pick these books up for a spec for $3 or $4, if they go huge, you're sitting on a big winner here for no money. If they go nowhere, you're out $3 or $4. So we typically spec on the DC first appearances or first cameo appearances, just because, like I said, for $3 or $4, if they go somewhere, you're sitting on a big winner. So grab this one here for a spec if you can. If you can't, though, put in your B list and take a look at it later on. Next up from DC Comics, Detective Comics number 1086. This features the first appearance of Shadow Angel. Now with the Detective Comics title series and the Batman title series, just like with the Action Comics title series and the Superman title series, those 4 titles, those are some of the most heavily collected and most popular titles for DC Comics. So whenever they introduce a character into any of these 4 title series, especially Detective Comics or Batman, these are books you typically do want to pick up for your collection. They are going to be a little more speculative because, like I mentioned before, it really depends on what DC does with these characters. But that being said, the Batman franchise, probably the most heavily collected and most popular franchise for DC Comics. So if they are introducing a new character into the Detective Comics title series, in our opinion, this is a great spec. So grab this one here for a spec if you can. If you can't, though, put in your B list and take a look at it later on. And finally, from Image Comics, Rook Exodus number 3. This features the first appearance of Carapace, Warden of Turtles. This also features the first cameo appearance of 14 characters. I'm not going to list all 14 of those characters here, but there are 14 cameo first appearances in this issue as well as the first appearance of Carapace. Now, if you guys aren't following this Rook Exodus series, this is very popular with fans and collectors. This has been a huge hit. So the fact that this has so many first cameo appearances, and there is actually a first full appearance here, this is one we do think you should pick up for your collection. Go ahead and grab this one. And now for the honorable mentions. From Dark Horse, Anansi Boys number 1. Now this here is an adaptation of the Neil Gaiman novel of the same name. Now this particular novel, the story itself, has a lot of option history. In May of 2020, this was optioned for an Amazon Prime series, and in January of 2022, filming began. So this story is already in production. Now this one here, like I mentioned, is the comic book adaptation of the Neil Gaiman novel, but there's been a lot of fans and collectors that really like that story, and like I said, it has already been optioned and filming began. So the fact that this here is the premiere issue of this particular series in comic book form, this is one we do think you should pick up for your collection. A lot of novels that have a big fan base, big collector base behind them already, if they get adapted into comic book form, the comic books typically do very well. Collectors and fans really like the comic book format, so these are books typically worth owning. So like I said, this is one we do think you should pick up for your collection. Go ahead and grab this one. And finally from Image Comics, Self-Help number 1. This is a pulp crime story about a rideshare driver who resembles an extremely successful self-help guru who stumbles into the situation of a lifetime, which if he's not careful may end his life. Now this one here sounds like it'll lend itself very well to a small screen, big screen project, and Image Comics has had a lot of their titles picked up and optioned in the past. And like we always mention, with these small press and indie publishers, if these stories get optioned, they hit the screen, a lot of fans and collectors will race back to the comic books and try to find the premiere issues or any first appearances. So this one here is definitely going to be a little bit more speculative if you choose to pick it up, because you are specking on this here, getting picked up an option, getting a lot more eyes on the story, and getting a lot more collectors to race back to the secondary market to find this book. So this here is a great spec in our opinion. Grab for a spec if you can. If you can't, though, put it in your B list, but definitely keep an eye on this one. So there you have the 5 titles that we have for you guys this week. There's definitely some books in there worth picking up for your collection. So please feel free to drop some comments in the comment section below. Thumbs up if you like this video. And as always, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for joining us here at Surf Fact Collectibles, and we'll see you again next time.